Hi everyone, welcome back to part 2 of creating a chess clock with Flutter. So in the previous part we created the chess clock screen, and let me open the chess clock screen. So this one currently have two widgets, two chess clock timer widgets. In this part I will create the chess clock functionality, and I'm going to put it inside utils folder, and I'm gonna call it chess_clock. So this class will contain the chess clock functionality, which will be very similar to a timer where you can start it, pause it, and check if timer is running and so on. I'm going to create functionality using test-driven development practices. So I will need first to add the test package inside my dev dependencies here. Then you should put all your tests inside the test folder. I'm gonna first remove this example test file, and I'm gonna create a similar folder structure with my chess clock underscore test file. So you need to put all your tests inside the main function. So for my test setup, I'm gonna keep the test file on the left side and the file to be tested on the right side. Also, I'm gonna open a small window at the bottom to run my Flutter test command, but this will execute the test command and then exit. Instead, I'm gonna use a tool called notmoon. So this tool will help watch for some specific files that have specific extension and then execute a specific command. So now whenever I change this file or this file, this Flutter test command will re-execute again. So the way test-driven development works is that first you start by writing the test cases to cover the functionality that you expect from your class or your function, and then you see your tests fail. Then you write the simplest implementation to make your test succeed. So I'm gonna start here by expecting a start functionality to exist on my chess clock. So this should basically start the timer. I will first import this test package, and I'm gonna create a new instance of the chess clock. Now I'm gonna expect a method called start to exist on this chess clock class, and to know that the clock has started, I'm gonna expect some milliseconds to be elapsed. So I'm gonna expect another method to exist on this class called getMillisElapsed, and I'm here expecting one second to be passed between this line and this line. So this doesn't make sense right now, but we are going to fix this. So if I try to run this, obviously this will fail. So I'm gonna start by writing the start and getMillisElapsed methods. So the way I'm gonna implement it is I'm gonna keep here a private integer, and I'm gonna initialize it with -1. So -1 will mean that this timer is not running, and whenever we call the start method, I'm gonna set the value of the started at to the current milliseconds, and that's how you can get the current milliseconds. Then to get getMillisElapsed, I'm gonna subtract the current milliseconds from started at. So if I try to save this, I'm still expecting this to fail, because there should be like 0 or 1 millisecond elapsed between this line and this line. So to fix this, what we can do is wait here for 1 second before running the expect statement. But of course this will make our tests super slow. So another solution is to fake time. And to fake time, I'm going to require a function to be passed to this chess clock class. I'm gonna call it getNowMillis. And I'm gonna use it instead of the datetime class to get the current milliseconds. So in the real app, I'm gonna set this function to get milliseconds from the datetime class, but in our test cases here, I can return an integer that we can control. Let me show you how is that. So I'm gonna start by defining the milliseconds to be 1 second, and after starting the clock I'm going to add 1000 milliseconds. So this should fix our test cases. So you can see our tests are now green. So the next functionality I'm expecting from this chess clock is the ability to pause it. So the way I can do it is just copy and paste this test case, and after starting the clock I'm gonna pause it here, and then I'm gonna add another 1 second after pausing the chess clock. Then I still should expect 1 second in total to be passed between calling the start method and calling the pause method. So I'm gonna start implementing this, but this will take some time, so I'm gonna stop talking here and I'm gonna speed up the video a little bit, and I'm gonna implement all functionalities that I'm expecting from this chess clock. Then I will just walk you through the functionalities I implemented. So what I have done so far is that I created test cases to cover all functionalities that I'm expecting from this chess clock, like the ability to start it, the ability to pause the clock, and to check if time is running, and also to get available time. So this chess clock starts at specific time, which I'm calling here time control millis, and then whenever we start it, it will start counting down. So in this example, I set the time control millis to 5 seconds, and then I started the clock and 1 second is passed. So I'm expecting the available millis to be 4 seconds. Also, I'm testing another functionality if time is up, and this will just to check if available millis is equal to 0. And lastly, this functionality called increments. This is very specific to chess clocks, and the way it works is that whenever the chess player clicks on his timer to pause it, then we will add a specific amount of time to his time control, which I am doing right here. So usually after you write the test cases to cover the basic functionality of your class or your function, you will go integrate it into your application, and when you find bugs, you will come back, you will write a test case to reproduce these bugs. Then you will write the simplest implementation to fix these test cases. But in my case, I already implemented this a few days ago, and I already knew some scenarios that will break our app. So I'm gonna write test cases to cover them. So now that I have my chess clock tested and ready to be used, I'm going to go to my screen and start integrating. But first I'm gonna exit this screen and I'm gonna go here to my chess clock screen. So we have two chess clock timer widgets, so we will need two instances of this chess clock class, and I'm gonna call them, I'm actually not going to set them as final, and I'm gonna call them top clock and bottom clock. So I need here to define the get now millis function, which in this case should return the current milliseconds using the datetime class. And also I'm gonna define the time control millis to be, for example, 5 minutes, and the increments to be 1 second. Gonna copy and duplicate for bottom clock. Then instead of defining these values randomly, I'm gonna get them from the clock instances. So is taking, I'm gonna get from top clock is taking function, and available time, we have this get available millis, so I will use it here. Also we have this attribute is time up, right, that we implemented in this chess clock timer widget, but let me double check. Yeah, so I'm gonna get the value of this is time up from this method is time up, and I'm gonna copy and paste this for the bottom clock as well. But I just need to replace top clock with bottom clock. Next, what I wanna do is when I click on this chess clock timer, I wanna stop the top clock, in this case the top clock, and start the bottom clock. So I need an ability to pass an onPressed function to this widget, which I haven't done. So let me first just define what will happen when we click on this top clock, and also when we click on bottom clock. So let me create these methods. So when we click on top clock, I'm gonna start or pause the top clock and start the bottom clock, and I'm gonna do the inverse when we click on the bottom clock. Now we don't have this attribute in the chess clock timer widget, so let me go and create this attribute. And to make our widget clickable, I need to pass it in the constructor first, and it doesn't have to be required actually. So to make our widget clickable, I'm gonna wrap our container within quell, which will give it this rebel animation. Also it will call this, oops, I think I did something wrong here. Let me try one more time. So this inquel will give our container the rebel animation, as well as it will call this onPressed function whenever we click on it. Man. Alright, let me pause the video right now, and I will run the Flutter emulator, and let's see what we have got so far. So I ran the Flutter run command, and right now we have the two chess clock timers, but whenever I'm clicking on them, nothing special is happening. We are just getting the rebel animation, and the reason for this is that we are not telling Flutter to refresh our widgets. So the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna convert this widget to be stateful, and then our init state, first I need to call super.init state, and let me annotate it as override. So in here I'm gonna just call set state every 200 milliseconds, for example. So there is this utility timer.periodic, which we can use. You give it an instance of the duration class, and in this case I'm gonna give it 200 milliseconds, and then you give it a callback, and in the callback I'm just gonna call set state, which will call Flutter to refresh our widgets. So refreshing our widgets will get the new values for is taking, is time up, and get available millis. So this is enough and it should work, but there is one more thing I'm gonna do here, is that I'm gonna create a private instance of the timer class, and the reason I need it is that I need to dispose it whenever we dispose our widget. So in the dispose method I'm gonna cancel it, it's not dispose, it's cancel. And also don't forget to call the dispose method from the super class. Let's write one more time. So now when I'm clicking on the top timer, you can see the bottom timer started, and if I click on it right now, you can see that it incremented with 1 second because that's the configuration that I have right now, and it looks like it's working. Maybe one more thing I want to test is if time is up. So I'm gonna go here and set the time control to be, let's say, 1 second. Let me hot restart. Right now if I click on the bottom clock, we should see the red color. Perfect.